EU should take active measures in order to become the world's greatest military superpower.
Okay. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Guys, the audience, please be as quiet as possible so you can hear these guys and value their arguments and so on and so forth. Are there any questions? No? My name is Andrei Magnescu. With me today will be judging Radu Zigarash and Adrian Moreș. Without further ado, I give the floor to the Prime Minister to start the case that's standing campaign.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we have the European Union. We have an economic power. We have the most votes in the Security Council. We have most vetoes in the NATO Security Council. And though we cannot enforce this power that we have today. And we say that now, as of this moment, the European Union should take active measures into becoming the world's greatest military superpower. And how are we going to do that? We are going to invest in a centralized military union. We're going to invest as much as we can, but no more than that, not as much as to affect us. And we're going to invest in this centralized military union. And we're going to have some percent from every country in the European Union, and some percent of manpower, some percent of technology, of money to invest for this centralized military union to happen. Now, I'm going to have 2 points in my speech, and I'm going to talk about how NATO isn't enough for the EU and for the EU and its interests, and I'm going to talk about how we as a European Union have to counterbalance the power in the world. Now, getting on to my first point about NATO. We see that NATO and its resolutions do not work much in the interest of the EU. The EU, the NATO army is sacrificed for the intentions of other military powers, such as the USA. They cater to they cater to other people's interests. And we see that we as the EU contribute to this NATO army with manpower, with military technology, and the EU contributes all these and gets nothing in return, because we see that NATO uses these resources in order to protect other people's interests, and these resources from NATO are gone in vain, because they bring nothing back to us as the EU, because NATO doesn't do enough for us as the EU. And we see that other superpowers in the world get all the credit for the interventions of NATO, but we get no credit for it. We get nothing in return. And we see that this. One moment. This is not how NATO works in the benefit of the EU. Please
explain us what exactly do you expect you should get from NATO's interventions?
The EU should get the protection of its interests, because the EU as a union has certain interests, and we see that NATO doesn't do enough for the European Union, doesn't do enough to protect the European Union's interests, and this interest might be of economical order, might be of international relations sort of benefits that we could get. Now, getting on to how the EU should protect these interests. The EU should be able to have power on its own hands, because we shouldn't wait for NATO to come and save us every time we need something. We do not need to rely only on the NATO, only on other powers to come and do something we can do ourselves. We see that we as an economic power, we as a union, we as an important piece of an important union on the map of the world have to have military power, have to invest in this military power in order to be able to protect our interests, in order to be able to develop our union on the long run. We see that we have to have the assurance that we can do things for ourselves when others can't help us. And we see that, no thank you. We need to use our disadvantage. Now, getting on to my second point about how we as a European Union should counterbalance the power in the world. We said the EU has had enough to suffer from USA's interventionism and how NATO works in the interest of other superpowers like the USA. We say that we have to take this step. We have to make this investment into becoming a world superpower, military superpower, in order to secure and protect our future. No, thank you. Because we see that NATO, protecting the interests of the USA, has intervened in Kosovo. We see that this wouldn't have happened if the EU had military power. The USA, through NATO, would have never intervened in Kosovo and bring us these disadvantages that this conflict has brought us if we had military power to protect ourselves and our interests. And we see that we need to take this measure as a protection against any type of these interventions, no thank you, of these interventions that can take place in the future. We see that we should be able to protect ourselves. And we see that we have to stand up for ourselves and become a military superpower. No, thank you. Because we have to make a name for ourselves. We have to be feared as a union. We have to have, no thank you, we have to have something to say. Because the European Union only works now at a speaking level. We don't do things. We don't intervene. We don't have military power. We only do this at a council, or we just say stuff. No, thank you. As the European Union, so we see that we should have this. We should have this fear factor as a union. We should make a name for ourselves as someone to be feared, as someone important, and we have to do this in order to protect ourselves from further bad actions from other people against us. No, thank you. And we see that we should not, and we see that we do not have to allow ourselves to be exploited. We do not have to allow ourselves to be
Please, ma'am.
no, thank you. We don't have to allow ourselves to be exploited and not have a word to say in things. We have to take this. We have to take this measure in order to secure our future. We have to take this measure in order to prevent. No, thank you. We have to take this measure in order to prevent others from bringing us disadvantages and doing deleterious actions against the EU. No, thank you. And we said this is a measure necessary today because we see that conflicts happen. Conflicts have happened and conflicts will happen in the future. And some of these may influence the EU and may happen to the EU. And we see that, no, thank you. The EU should be able to protect itself. The EU should be able to protect their interests. The EU should be able to have something to say, something to back up their, to back them up in conflicts or in any type of disputes that may occur. And we said this military power is exactly what the EU needs right now to become even more than we are right now, even more than an economical power. We have to become a military superpower because this is a step necessary at this point. And at the end of the day, we see that we have to that NATO is just not good enough for the EU anymore. The NATO cannot protect the EU anymore, cannot do its best for protecting the EU's interests. And we see that we should have, and secondly, we should protect ourselves from further bad things that would happen to us. And at the end of the day, we see that now, as of right now, we have to take this measure in order to secure ourselves and our future. So please, for these reasons, I hope you propose the motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that speech. And now I give the floor to the leader of the opposition to start the case this time.
Mr. Speaker, in the moment in which you have to deal with 28 different democracies, with many different needs, with many different ones, and with no real problem that has appeared and that was presented by Team Proposition today, we believe that it is firstly impossible, secondly, it's useless, and thirdly, it will bring big drawbacks if we implement this motion. Now, Team Opposition will have today two big lines of argumentation. Firstly, I'm going to develop about demilitarization and its interest for the EU, and secondly, my colleague Lulu will further develop our case talking about the Joker effect. But first, let's look at the case presented today by the proposition. We have some problems with the model proposed by them, because what they said today is that we're going to invest as long as it does not affect us. We believe that in the current situation of the EU, this means that we won't invest anything. We have big problems in our economy, and that means that we have no resources. We have scarce resources, we have a scarce economy, and we are not able to invest so little, we don't want to obtain anything. Now, let's look at this really possible, because we believe that for 3 reasons it is impossible for EU to become such an important power. Firstly, as I stated, resources. We are an economy based on services. The EU is based on services. We are the #1 exporter of services in the world. The other countries like China and the USA are economies based on resources and importing an industry. That's why they are able to support, that's why they are able to become such a strong, important military power. But in the moment in which you are based on services and are unable to construct planes, nukes and stuff like that, we believe that it's fundamentally false and it's impossible to become such thing. Secondly, human capital. We believe that we have different people with different needs, and if you look at China, the other way of becoming an important power, they have a lot of guys. We will not have some people coming to the high school and telling you, you should become a Marine. This is not how the EU functions. We are unable to get those people into the army because this is not how the EU functions. This is not the concept of the EU. And moreover, economy. Let's look at the economy of the EU, and we believe that we have some sectors, some areas that are underdeveloped in this particular moment. We have some more important areas that are not fundamentally working. They are not working in what in proposition stands for today is that, well, let them not working and let's invest in something that is not so important because they did not provide us some harms of the SQ. Moreover, they talked today about that, well, NATO is not enough. They did not give us examples of why NATO is not enough. We believe that first the EU did not have so many problems for NATO to intervene. Yes, we need to have intervened when the USA had some troubles because yes, they had troubles. The European Union did not have some kind of troubles, that's why we did not intervene. Secondly, it was a voluntary action for the countries to become members of NATO. And you did not become member of NATO as being the EU, but as being a country with your own sovereignty, with the decision of the people. And in the moment in which you decide to become part of the NATO, well, of course, you assume the consequences and also you get the benefits, like a strong army, like a developed investment from the NATO, and that they will solve the problems in the moment in which you have those problems. Moreover, the third answer to NATO is the concept of the EU. We believe that the EU is not such thing that we should undermine the sovereignty. It's a non-federation, it's not a federation, it has lots of bureaucracy, and things will not work. If you want a centralized military army like they propose, we do not understand how it will really work. We do not understand how it will serve the interests of every country in part because the EU is not so volatile, strong, interconnected. If we look at the banking union, the thing that was needed and was wanted by the majority of the countries, that simple thing wanted by everybody did not function. It is not possible for that simple thing to function. What they propose is something that is really important, really great to pursue, and we believe it's fundamentally wrong and impossible to provide it. Moreover, it is not enough. NATO undermines the fact that EU is so important. False, factually false, because EU has the second leverage, international leverage after the USA. If the EU wants something, it will obtain it finally, because this is how things work. Because the international global scene really needs the thing that the EU provides. They need our services, they need our international PR. Oh, that's why the international community really helps the European Union, and it's factually false to say that, well, we're not that important. But moreover, they talked about that. Okay, we want the fear factor. No, we did not want the fear factor, but because the EU was formed by the means that we should become a promoter of peace. We even got the Nobel Prize, for God's sake, for being the promoter of peace last year. We believe that it's fundamentally wrong after we have got a Nobel Prize for peace to start becoming a military superpower. It undermines the fact that we are that promoter of peace. We believe it's really not a normal thing to happen. Okay, we suffered from the interest, and the only example given was the example of Kosovo. We do not understand how we suffered from that example. We see that that problem was solved. We believe that that problem was solved quickly. It was solved with really no big harms for the European community, and we believe that is really good. They say that, well, if we had an army, it would be better. We did not understand firstly why. They did not give us any analysis on why an army of the EU would react better, and we believe it wouldn't. Moreover, the last point was about the fact that, okay, we have this kind of, we are based on the USA, and the USA really is the one that has the most interest. Well, the USA and the European Union really cooperate. This is the fact that they cooperate on the international scene, they cooperate on the military basis and any kind of basis. That's why we believe that any military action that was promoted in the last 15 years was promoted by Europe, the European Union, and the USA and the other powers together. The last point is about risk. Let's look at what happened in the recent years. We had Iran, we had irrational agents that really did something. They started to create nukes and stuff like that. And what happened was that we did not need an army. Nothing happened. Even if Iran developed nukes, nothing happened to the EU. In this particular moment, Iran stopped doing this and it cooperates with the international community. The irrational agents start becoming rational. And the message that we send is that in the particular moment that we become rational, where we're going to be a more important superpower, we believe, and my colleague will further develop on it, that we will have some drawbacks on that. And this leads me to my particular constructive line about demilitarization. And as I've stated, we have irrational agents. We have agents like the Hamas, like Al-Qaeda. This is how the modern world looks like. The Western democracies don't fight each other. It's not like the UK or France will invade the USA and stuff like that. We do not have world wars anymore. We have modern wars that are within groups, small groups, and these are our irrational agents. But moreover, they are small agents. And the war that needs to be fought against them, it's a war of intelligence, it's a war that is different. It does not mean that active interest. In the moment in which you really want to invest and become such a huge and important military power, the only thing that you do is that you believe that you make the EU be that Western interventionist country, and those irrational agents will become even more and more aggressive, and we believe that this is exactly the thing that we do not want to do. Because we believe also that the concept of a military European Union will make the EU be more prone to be part of those international conflicts. And for all of these reasons, at the end of the day, we have proven that it's perfect. It is impossible because of resources, because of human capital, because of the economy based on services. That secondly, NATO really solves the problem. They did not challenge that factually. And thirdly, we demonstrated to you that demilitarization is really the thing that you should do. For all of these reasons, I beg to oppose.
Thank you for the speeches. We now move forward to the second speaker on site composition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to talk about three things here. Firstly, I'm going to talk about our model and how it is good and how it is helpful for the European Union in the future. Secondly, I'm going to talk about demilitarization and what they told us today and what they brought to the table. And in the third place, I'm going to talk about the power that we have and cannot be enforced at this time. Firstly, talking about what they said about our model and what were their questions about what we said today. Well, they asked us, how could we get this whole huge sum of money, of resources, of people, of capital, and all this stuff? Well, firstly, we told you specifically that we will give as much as we can. We will not surpass these numbers, and we will give as much as we can based on the country's GDP, and we will not surpass this particular level. Secondly, we talked about the thing that we want a centralized military. We want that all the countries to have a centralized military, and this military could be much more effective than it is at this moment when we cannot represent the European Union's European Union's interest on a military level in the world at this time. Now, talking about what we said about the thing that NATO is not enough for the European Union at this time. We said that NATO at this time is not representing the European Union as good as it could.
Please.
And we said that NATO has other interests, than representing the European Union, and we don't like it. Because we believe that we should have a thing to say on the global scale when it comes to military. Because we believe that the European Union has reached a level when it is much more mature than only being an economical union. And I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about this later. Thank you. And they also told us that the fact that you are in NATO is something that you want. You voluntarily go into NATO, and it is something that you assume. And they told us about the fact that you have some benefits. and you assume that it will have some disadvantages. Yes, sir. But we believe that the European Union and the countries from the European Union that are going to NATO at this moment have much more disadvantages than benefits. And we believe this is not fair, and we believe that the solution for that is to create a military union for these countries from the European Union. Secondly, they told us about how there are so many different interests in the European Union at this time, because we have 28 different democracies, and it's impossible to apply something like that because all these democracies have very different interests. But we see at this moment that there is a trend of federalization in the European Union. We see that the European Union is going to a much more united kind of political structure, and we see that the countries from the European Union are much more prone to be united and to have actually common interests when it comes to the social, political, and finally but not least, military level. Now, talking about the fact that we won the Nobel Prize for Peace, we believe that this is not relevant because we can act as a peaceful mechanism rightly because we have a military union, because this military union is not only for purposes of war or something like that, because in the modern society, as they said, a military union serves many other different purposes than only being a mechanism of attack. Talking about the situation in Kosovo, they told us that we had no real disadvantages from this situation, and because the situation was, they said, solved, we should not talk about this, but we believe that it is not the fact that it was solved that is important, it's the fact that NATO and the USA undermined very big international laws when they did this, because the international laws say that NATO and the USA cannot intervene in a European country on European territory. Now, talking about what they told us today, well, the only thing that they came to the table and told us was demilitarization. They told us that this trend of demilitarization and how the countries have to act more responsible, how they have to be much more careful when it comes to the military actions, and the countries should not attack one each other. But we believe that this is wrong, and we believe that demilitarization does not mean this in the first place, and we believe that this kind of demilitarization is not the right one at this moment. Now, I'm going to talk about something. I'm going to talk about the USA. In USA, there are a lot of people that say that demilitarization is needed, but there are also much more people that say that demilitarization is something that is not needed. It is something that would actually have a deleterious effect in a moment, will have a deleterious effect on the country later. So we see that this trend is not a trend that we should follow because it has many other repercussions. I'm going to talk this about after this.
How can you explain the fact that all the important powers, USA, Russia, China, invest less and less in militarization?
Yes, we invest less and less in militarization, but this doesn't mean that this is a good trend, and this doesn't mean that it's supported by the people at this time, because the people do not want this, because the people see that it's a great danger at this moment, this demilitarization, because it undermines the country's powerfulness, and it undermines the country's deterrent effect. And I'm not going to talk about this in my own substantive, which is going to start now, which is the power that has to be enforced. So, as my teammate said in her first speech, the EU has the most votes in the Security Council, and the EU and the countries from the EU have the most vetoes in the NATO Council. But what does this mean? Is this power? Well, yes, it is power, but not at the level that we want it. It is not a power that can be applied. It is not a power that can be enforced. It is only on a diplomatic level. And we know that the diplomatic level does not count as much as it could, because at the end of the day, the thing that we vote is not enforced by us. It is enforced by other organizations, by other countries, by other superpowers that do exactly what they want for their purposes. And we believe this is not fair. No, this is not fair. We believe this is not what we want, and we believe that this is not in the interest of the European Union at this time. And we are revolted by this, and we do not want it. We believe that the European Union should have a much more powerful word to say in the European scene and the global scene at this time. Now, talking about the bigger human force that we have, because we have a much bigger human force than the current superpower of the world right now. I'm talking about USA. We believe that this whole human resource is not used at its potential, and we believe that we should be able to use it, and we believe that this human force should be used as a factor of creating military union. Now, talking about maturity, we believe that the European Union has achieved a level when it is much more important than an economic organization, which was its first purpose when it was created. We believe that it is much more important as the current picture of the social political map on the globe. It is much more important to create something more than just an economical union, because we have to have something more to say in this matter. Talking about the deterrent effect, I have to say that it is very important at this time to have something to be important. It has to be we have to be feared at this time. We have to be feared, and we have to send the message that you cannot attack the country in the European Union, because you will have very, very good consequences because of your action. And we have to understand that this is something that we have to have at this moment. So, ladies and gentlemen, all this being said, we believe that we have proven today that our model stands, and it is possible to realize that proven today that it is much more important to have a military union at this time than the economic one that we already have. And we believe this is much more important to prove them today. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks for that speech. And now we will go to Chair for 1 second.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we heard no disadvantages, we heard no problems, but we heard the fact that we need a military power in order to do something. We do not know what we want for this motion. They do not tell us exactly why, especially in this situation, we need that, and we believe that there is no need for such a power in this moment. I'm going to structure my speech in 4 main points. First of all, I'm going to have 3 main points of rebuttal, meaning that we are unable at this point to do that as the European Union. Second of all, I'm going to talk about NATO and how exactly NATO is the best thing that we could have had right now. And third of all, I'm going to talk about becoming a power and why exactly we are a power and we do not need more than that right now. But before, and then fourth of all, I'm going to go into my own constructive part of the case, which is the Joker effect. But before that, let me clarify something. You know, what they totally told us today was the fact that, you know, in this particular situation in which EU is unable to take any military action, we need to do a military union in order to protect ourselves. And we have 2 questions for that. First of all, what is the threat? What we are against? What is that thing that is dangerous for the European Union right now? Because we can see that there is no threat in our world right now. And second of all, if you believe that each and every particular imaginary threat is to be treated with military action, therefore we should go and gun raise each and every country that is opposing our ideology. So we believe that in this particular situation you have no reason to create a military power because of no threat and because you have other means to solve a problem.
Sir.
Now, let's move on to the first point of rebuttal. Meaning that we are unable to do that. And we have 2 main reasons. First of all, on economical level, as on their model, we believe that we do not have enough money to invest. We do not have the resources to invest in a moment in which we are only investing in order not to affect ourselves. And the moment in which we are in a crisis, in the moment in which we have a set budget, we do not have any more money left in order to invest more. So therefore, if we are to invest as not to affect us, we won't invest at all. No change, no military power. Moreover, another layer of analysis on economical level is the fact that we are based on trading services. We do not have industry, we cannot produce, we do not have money to buy, we cannot get our military support in order to develop as a military power. So we believe that in this particular situation, we cannot invest on economical level, we do not have the capabilities in order to do that. Moreover, the second point about